All in favor of taking it off the table?
Have a report that we can see in hand.
This blue one.
Thank you.
Light blue. Okay. ARB, Article 8, Mr. Simmons. Okay, so we have Hayner, Fisher, Fitzgerald. Right.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Bruce Fitzsimmons, Arlington Redevelopment Board. I'm presenting Article 8, a proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw that would allow accessory apartments and single-family residences in zoning districts R0 and R1. These are the single-family zones. An accessory apartment is a second unit that's located within a structure built as a single-family house, smaller than the primary unit, and separated from it with its own kitchen, bathroom, and two means of egress. By way of background, over the past several years, the Planning Department has received several requests to consider allowing accessory apartments in Arlington. Those who favor allowing accessory apartments argued that doing so would allow long-term residents to stay in their homes, even in the face of rising home ownership costs, by renting out a portion of their properties and using the rental income to make mortgage payments, pay real estate taxes and insurance premiums, and to cover the costs of maintenance and improvements. Worthy as those goals are, the Planning Department and the ARB were also concerned with the impact that allowing accessory apartments would have in Arlington, a town with a high population density, relatively small lots, and precious little open space. To see how we could allow accessory apartments and still preserve the town's important characteristics, we took a multifaceted approach. The Planning Department looked into how other local towns and cities have addressed the issue of accessory apartments and completed a matrix showing the results of that research. In drafting the warrant article, we borrowed from the experience of our neighboring communities when doing so made sense for Arlington. Those results have been posted on the ARB's website. In addition, an online survey of town meeting members was conducted this past winter to determine the level of interest among members in considering a warrant article of this type. Of the 119 members who responded, approximately 75% indicated they would consider allowing accessory apartments. I don't wish to overstate this point. The results indicated that you would consider it, not that you would approve it, and of course the number of respondents was approximately only half of the total membership. Nevertheless, the survey results and your comments were informative and helped guide the drafting of the article. Those survey results were also posted on the ARB's website. The ARB has discussed this topic at many board meetings, including a public information session in February of this year that was dedicated solely to this topic, as well as at the ARB's annual public hearing on proposed zoning bylaw amendments held this past March. At these meetings, we listened to arguments both in support of and in opposition to the concept of accessory apartments. At times, those arguments were quite passionate. These meetings helped the ARB and the Planning Department to understand with greater clarity the issues pertaining to accessory apartments that most concerned our citizens. From this process, the ARB concluded that there was interest in an article that would allow accessory apartments, provided that there were sufficient controls to preserve the residential character of Arlington's neighborhoods. The recurring themes in the public response were that accessory apartments must be significantly smaller and subordinate to the main dwelling unit. The accessory apartment must be contained within the main dwelling unit. Either the main apartment or the accessory apartment must be owner-occupied. There must be adequate on-site parking for both the main dwelling and the accessory apartment. The accessory apartment should be allowed only by special permit, and the accessory apartment and the main dwelling unit must meet all requirements of the zoning bylaw in force at the time of filing the special permit application. Turning to the warrant article itself, I submit that we have arrived at the right balance. The article provides that accessory apartments will only be allowed by special permit in the R0 and R1 districts, and then only in single-family dwellings that meet all of the requirements of both the zoning bylaw and the town's bylaw, in effect as of the time of filing the special permit application. This means that in order for the application to succeed, under current requirements, a property in the R0 zoning district must contain at least 9,000 square feet with frontage of at least 75 feet, with no more than 35% of a lot covered by improvements, with a front yard setback of 25 feet from the front street, side yard setbacks of 10 feet, and a rear yard setback of 20 feet, with height not in excess of 35 feet or 2.5 stories, and with open space on the lot equal to at least 30% of the gross floor area. In an R1 zoning district, the minimum lot size is 6,000 square feet, and the minimum frontage is 60 feet, all other dimensional requirements being the same as in the R0 district. We believe that these requirements with respect to lot size will help protect against an unreasonable increase in density if accessory apartments were allowed. The article further provides that there shall be not more than one accessory apartment on a lot, and that the accessory apartment must be contained within the existing dwelling. This provision would prohibit an accessory apartment from being situated in an accessory building, such as a garage or a carriage house, and is intended to preserve the architectural integrity of the existing structure and the residential character of the neighborhood in which it is situated. We were particularly concerned with the issue of parking. We considered whether a parking space for an accessory apartment might be required in all cases, or whether it could be waived on a case-by-case basis, depending on various factors such as proximity to public transportation, proximity to alternative parking areas, whether or not the prospective resident of the accessory apartment owned a vehicle, or whether the owner of the existing dwelling owned more than one car. In the end, we concluded that a firm requirement of 3 spaces, 2 for the main dwelling and 1 for the accessory apartment, would be the best way to address concerns that accessory apartments would lead to greater street congestion due to either permitted overnight parking or illegal overnight parking. Perhaps the key component of the article is that the accessory apartment must be clearly accessory to the main dwelling. The main way to accomplish this goal is to require that the accessory apartment be significantly subordinate in size to the main dwelling unit. Accordingly, the article provides that the gross floor area of the accessory apartment cannot be greater than 1/3 the gross floor area of the entire dwelling, and in no event greater than 700 square feet in size. At this point, I understand we have some volunteers who have said that they would be willing to rise and find the spots that are on the floor. Laura Wiener, Joey Glushko, Mr. O'Connor, and we have, I'm sorry, my eyes aren't that good. That's approximately 700 square feet. So you can get a feel for what type of space we're talking about. Pardon me? Oh, if you want to raise your hand just so it's clear who you are, where you're standing. Great, thank you. By imposing this restriction, the article attempts to clearly distinguish the case of an accessory apartment in a single-family dwelling from a case of 2 rental apartments in a 2-family residential dwelling. Due to the subordinate size requirement, accessory apartments will most likely be occupied by a single person or at most 2 people. Families and larger groups of tenants would find an accessory apartment too small. In effect, by restricting the size of accessory apartments, we are creating a separate class or market for accessory apartments that is distinct from that of rental apartments generally, whether they be in 2 or 3 family dwellings or multi-unit apartment buildings. Finally, the article would require that at least one of the units be owner-occupied. By doing so, the article attempts to preserve the residential character of a neighborhood by making the accessory apartment option only available to someone who currently owns a qualifying property and wishes to continue to live in one of the units. As I mentioned earlier in these remarks, we've heard and read a great deal of public comment on this article, some of which has been strongly critical of the concept. Opponents have stated that this article, if passed, would result in the elimination of single-family zoning or destroy the character of Arlington's residential neighborhoods. I would submit that this vastly overstates the case. If you refer back to the terms of the article itself, you will see that there are protections built into the article to preserve single-family residential districts while carving out an exception for accessory apartments. I would also submit to you that the character of our neighborhoods is defined not solely by the types of buildings we allow to be situated there, but also by the people who live in them. Allowing accessory apartments will allow long-term residents to continue to live in their homes and in their neighborhoods. Allowing accessory apartments would also provide opportunity for multi-generational families, including adult children who may not have the resources to find adequate housing in town, to live together, pooling resources, providing child care and elder care to each other under one roof, but with a greater degree of privacy. In conclusion, I would ask that the town meeting carefully review this article's protections for our neighborhoods and single-family districts and find, as I hope you will, that it strikes the right balance between those values and the goals of allowing long-term homeowners to continue to reside in their homes. Thank you.